Welcome to Men Are the Prize. It's me, it's your host, it's Harvey. How's the week going? How's the day going? I hope it's well. I hope everything is good. It's another great guest. I'm excited. To be honest, wasn't sure if I was going to get this man, so I'm honored that I'm going to have this guest on here. Before we get to him, let's take a minute and let's just talk about one of my favorite words, and that's resilience. Now, if you've been a watcher of this show, you know Prize is, it's the mantra. And one of the letters in Prize is R, and the word is resilience. And that's the ability to deal with life. Life just beats you down. Life is tough. And sometimes it's great, but when it's bad, it's bad. And learning how to deal with it, learning how to handle the punches that are thrown at you, and being able to get back up is an important thing. And one great thing about a resilient person is that, something happens, we deal with life, we fall down, but then we get up. And when we get up, we're a better person than when we fell down. And that's a good thing, to be better, not only to have learned, but to just in general be a better person. And I think I have this with my guest this week. And let's bring him in. We are lucky. We're going to call him White George. How you doing today, sir?
Good. What's up, Harvey? How are you doing?
I am well. Thank you very much. If you've seen this wonderful looking man, hopefully you've seen him on TikTok, on social media, and taking it by storm. He's just such a great person to listen to, a great person to learn from. We're going to get into that. To get started, what I love to do with any person who graces me with their presence on the podcast is I love to read a quick bio. Just tell you the world a little something about you, but I'm going to ask that you delve a little bit more into it when we get to that. White George, former racist / ex-con, works to draw attention to the inequity and false stereotypes held against Black Americans, as well to celebrate the crown jewel of the American higher education system, HBCUs. I absolutely love that you take so much pride in HBCUs. So my first question, how did that
happen? I'm a history nerd. I have been since I was a little kid. And I've studied a lot of Black American history over my life, just casually. And in prison, I did a lot more of it because a lot of gentlemen couldn't read. So I would read books so that I could tell them stories. And I read stories about Hispanic Americans, Black Americans, and it's something I've always done. But one of the central themes in these stories so often is historically Black colleges and universities. And I started to realize so much American talent has come from these schools. I wanted to know more. And what I discovered is just, like I said, a hidden jewel. People don't realize how premium of an education these colleges provide. And we all Americans benefit from it. It's just a story that needs to be told.
So true. So true. And your knowledge about historically Black colleges is amazing. I've learned so much. And the more I listen to you, the more I realize how little I know. So I'm watching you and I'm in awe, but I'm like, oh my God, like I'm depressed. Like, how come I don't know about my history? So it really made me focus on such an important part of my history. I want to just really ask, would you mind telling us your story? Because obviously you mentioned you were incarcerated. And so can you tell us as much as you're willing to, let the world know about?
I'm an open book. I grew up in a small town in Arkansas, and I grew up taught a very racist ideology by people I loved and trusted, and they were taught by people loved and trusted. I lived in an echo chamber, so I didn't know there's another way to think. And as I went through life, I've had success as a mortgage sales executive. I've had my own businesses. I've done all kinds of different things, just meandering through life, basically. But I became an opiate addict after having a major surgery. I almost lost my arm. So for 10 years, I was hooked on pills. I became a thief, a jewelry thief, and was sentenced to 13 years in prison for it. First time in trouble, mind you. They threw the book at me. I served 3 years total. And it changed my life. God has a very very mysterious way and funny way of getting your attention. But in my backstory, I was raised with 2 parents, 2 sisters. I had a good home. I had a fantastic father, great role model. Even though he's the one that helped instill racism in me, I didn't realize until after his passing, I had so many people tell me that my dad was the least racist person they knew. And after a lot of years, I started to see it, but I couldn't see it in front of me, how my dad changed and evolved. And people wonder where I get my inspirations from my father, because he quietly did it. And I drove a dump. I did construction and drove trucks after I got out of prison. And I was driving a dump truck up until 3 months ago. But I thought, why not just tell some stories on TikTok just for fun to see if people would like to hear it? 100 million views later. Yeah, I guess a lot of people like to hear it.
That has to be amazing from you, like you said, driving the dump truck to being very much the vision, the picture of just loving of Black American history. What kind of messages, DMs or whatever, do you get from people who maybe just find you, or what do you talk?
Most of it's very loving, appreciative, asking where I learned, asking about me. About 1 to 2% hate. I've gotten death threats, been called a white savior. And I'm like, of course I'm a white savior. I'm white and I save my own ass. Yeah, I'm a white savior by definition. Okay. I get most of it's all really, really good and positive. And I was worried about how people would take a middle-aged white guy who's open about having grown up racist. But I found that transparency and honesty gives me credibility. People are willing to listen because I'm open about my struggles and things I've overcome to try to be a better human. So yeah, most of it is love. I mean, I love the followers in my community, man. They have some of the best there are on the internet.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I would imagine the vast majority of African Americans who follow you love what you do. What kind of messages do you get from black people who reach out to you?
So most of it's, I didn't know about the history that they're learning, or I'm finding a lot of it's they just like the way I tell a story. I think that's probably the most I get. They just like the energy and enthusiasm and the details I dig into, because a lot of people don't realize how much research I do. And I don't do a lot on Google. I mean, I'm Library of Congress. I'm like, university papers. I use VPNs because that way I can get outside of a country and I can look how people look in at it. And I think I love the research as much as anything. The storytelling just comes natural to me.
That's awesome. All right. Thanks for that little bit of info. Let's get into it. If you are a new listener or watcher of this podcast, welcome. What an episode you chose to watch or listen for the first time. I'm honored to have White George here as my guest. Like I said, if you're new, here's what I do. I take the word prize. 4 of the letters in the word prize represent characteristics that I think are good ones for men. This is a conversation, a space for men, in this case, White George, to open up, and we're just talking about whatever it is. And it's important for us men to be vocal, to be emotional, to be open, to be vulnerable. And I don't know if there's more vulnerable person right now on social media or anywhere than White George. You just putting himself out there, and I respect it so much. So let's get started. The first letter in the word prize is P, and the word is purpose. Reason for which something is done or created, or for which something exists. White George, what is your purpose now?
Yeah, I pray about that a lot. And I think my purpose is to show other people how just to love and respect other people around you, how to change our perspective. You look for ugly, you find ugly. But if you look for beauty, you'll find it everywhere. And sometimes I think it's just a simple degree of perspective that we need to switch and look at people differently and see them for the value they have, and not as someone we can blame for our own problems. I really think it's just that simple if we can just make that little shift.
That's good. When you were younger, or not even as a child, maybe in your teens and you're an adult, did you have a purpose before the one that you have now?
Oh yeah, but it was all egotistical, self-inflated, self-interest. I used to be a heavyweight powerlifter and bodybuilder.
Okay.
I'm a very competitive driven person. And so I throw myself into everything I do. And I had a successful moving business. So like everybody, it was associated with money and success and things. That was my purpose. It was the misguided purpose. But yeah, it was like so many of us fall into that fallacy. I didn't really have any meaning to my life.
Understood. Okay. Is there a specific moment where the purpose shifts? Or is it something that was gradual?
I mean, it was gradual, yes, but I think one of probably the most defining moments is last Memorial Day, believe it or not. I'd just done a story historically about colleges in general. And I looked at my girl, Anna, my beautiful partner, and I said, do you want to go see some campuses? So we hopped in the car and we drove to Central State, Wilberforce, Kentucky State, and Simmons College of Kentucky. We'd never heard of them. We just Googled them. They were within a few hours, and we took off. Campus school wasn't even in session. I read about the schools and I walked the campus and I just told the story and felt the energy of the place. And that weekend, that Memorial Day weekend of 2023 was a life changer. It set us on a path. It changed our lives. I mean, just that one event, just stepping into something and like, we have to do this.
What's it like walking on those campuses, understanding the history, and especially if you went where there were no students? So what was it like? Just kind of open land, but so much behind it.
Well, I guess when you know the history and some of the people that have come from it, and then students, I often say people have no context for what prison is like. I cannot make you understand it. But one of the things you develop is you can feel anger and pain and hurt and energy. You can feel it because it's so intensified. And I walked on those campuses and I felt beauty, absolute beauty, just the surroundings, because I realized the historic struggles, the underfunding, and I'm looking around like these places are amazing, despite society trying to keep them down and push them, away. They were just, and I realized there's something here. There is something so special. And I just think people ought to know and respect what exists in America in our backyard.
So true. There's this constant fight to kind of push down what Black Americans have done in this country. We're not just a bunch of enslaved people. There's so much more to us. And I really feels like if we would stop just focusing on that and all the rest, all the things that we've created, the music that we've created, the movies, the land, what we've done once we're giving an opportunity. If we had more people who kind of looked at history as not just Black, but just the history of this country, we'd be so much better off. So this is why. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, sir.
No, can I give you an observation about that?
Yes, please.
And you can ask me about racism. I'm very open. So any questions you've ever wanted to ask a former racist, please ask me. And I will tell you from my perspective.
Okay.
My form of racism was to look down on other people because it made me feel better. Like, let's say you moved into my neighborhood, right? But I have 10 cars parked on blocks in the yard. My property value is going down. It's easier to blame you than it is to be accountable for my own actions. It is easier to blame another segment of society for white society's problems than face our own. That's what racism looked like to me. And I think it still exists to this day. Nikki Haley, racism doesn't exist in this country. This is why we should drug test people in Congress. This is why I think she would fail, because that is not a rational thought. But I will say this, she went from broke to defense contractor to a Republican shill. Connect the dots. She's human like everybody else. Mm-hmm. She sold out. I look at it and those are talking points. Oh, race doesn't exist. Yeah, it does. I speak the code. I was at the inner circle. I know the handshake. When I hear the words, I'm like, you're not bullshitting me. You know what I mean? Like, I can see it and call people out in ways other people can't. And I think that's one of the reasons why people shun Black American history. And let me be clear. Black history is American history. That's all there is to it. And Black History Month is something I am not in support of. It should be celebrated 24/7, 365, just like we do every other history. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to have something come out next month for Black History to shock everybody. So,
oh, wow.
Black History, the white people edition.
Ooh, I'm ready. I'm ready.
For 1 month, Black History is the rest of the year. But for the month, I'm going to focus on white people who either helped or hurt Black Americans. I want to paint both sides.
Okay. I'm ready for that. Let me ask you a question, because a lot of what I do, mental health is my thing. Men's mental health is my issue. What was your mental health like when you were racist? Because racist is one thing. It's just to kind of see people as below you or whatever. But how did it feel for you as no longer racist? If you can look back, what was it like for you in your soul, emotionally?
I didn't realize the weight of the hate. And I don't use hate because I don't hate anybody, but that arrogance, I don't think I ever came to terms with mental health because I shielded myself as a defense mechanism, probably and I grew up with not an idyllic childhood. I grew up with some pretty bad things that I would pray no one ever goes through. We lost our house, burned down while I was in the hospital with meningitis while my dad was fighting brain cancer as a teenager. We lost everything. Like, I went through a lot. I had to learn to walk again. I don't know if I ever took stock of my mental health because it's the best way to put this. I'm so determined and driven that I never stopped to check on myself. It's only recently prison is where I really became aware of men's mental health issues. I saw mental health deteriorate. I felt mine deteriorate in 28 days in isolation in a small box with I couldn't see outside. Lights never went off. My mind started to slip.
Mm. Wow. Wow. Okay. The next letter in the word prize is R. The word is resilience, the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties and toughness. You've had quite a bit happen in your life, but I'll ask you maybe to pick something in particular. Can you think of a particular situation, something that happened, anything that made you realize that you had a resilience that you didn't know that you had previously?
I'm gonna paraphrase a quote attributed to Babe Ruth. Babe Ruth said basically, he goes, "I'm one of the greatest, not because I'm the greatest. It's because I'm willing to get up one more time than the person next to me. And as long as I keep getting up one more time until nobody's left, I'm the only one left standing." So I take that philosophy. I don't have to do anything more than anybody. I just need to get up one more time than the next person. You know what I mean? And just keep pushing, just keep getting up. When I told you my dad's brain cancer, he had been diagnosed in January of '86 with multiform grade 4 glioblastoma. That is a 97% terminal cancer, brain cancer, given a year to live. Later that year, I was contracted spinal meningitis, went to the hospital the day after Christmas. January 5th rolls around. My dad was given a year to live. I'm thinking he's going to die that day because I'm 14 or 15. I didn't know any better. We're in the hospital. My mom and sister come and join us. About a couple hours later, our preacher comes in and we're like, "I get to go home tomorrow." He goes, "I got some bad news. Your house just burned down a couple hours ago." So now we had no home. My dad's not right in the head because he's still dealing with the effects. And that was one of the worst. I almost lost my entire family that day. My mom and sister, if they stayed home, they would have been killed because the hot water heater blew. My dad was, as far as I'm dying of brain cancer, and I had almost just died of meningitis. And this was in a very tiny period of time. And I look back that we got through that. I learned to walk again. My dad lived for 24 more years despite having brain cancer 2 more times. And I realize, and I tell people this, that is the worst day a person could ever have. That I almost lost my life. My family almost lost their life. We lost our home and we came back. There is nothing you can take away from me that wasn't almost taken that day. I don't have bad days anymore. I don't have bad days. I don't know what you could do worse to me. I've survived prison. So yeah, my resilience comes from being put through hell. God put me through it for a reason. It gives me the fortitude that I have today. It's a blessing when I look back at it.
My goodness. That is amazing. That's quite the story. And obviously you're a stronger man because of it. Um, you speak, and I know I watched a lot of you, a lot of events that you've gone to, and you speak to people. When people talk to you or maybe ask you about dealing with life, what is your personal form of advice to give to people? Clearly, you've been through so much. What are your specific words to people when it comes to, oh, how do I deal with it? What do I do? That.
I've learned to ask people first, and people will tell you if you'll listen, they'll tell you what they're struggling with. They'll tell you what their strength and hope is. And I can take that usually and key in on it. Let's say they have a dream of being a writer, right? And they're going through some bad times. And I'll be like, "Have you ever started to write about it?" And I'll just find something that they like and I will validate. That's the first thing I try to do is just validate them. What they're feeling is real. And that bad things happen to good people, and that it's funny. The tragedies of my life have turned out to be blessings. Every one of them. Prison was a blessing. It's one of the hardest things I've ever done. I fought for my life in there. It was a blessing. And I think it's just getting people to realize that bad things that happen to your life just happen in it, not to you. And they are preparing you for something in the future that is unseen. And start to appreciate and take stock of the experience because those skills you gained are going to benefit you down the road. And something horrible coming your way might not be so bad anymore. And people kind of start to look at their tragedies a little differently. I think that's the best thing it's just perspective. I mean, there you go. That's the best word I would say, perspective.
That's a good word. A good word. Did you have somebody to talk to like that? Obviously, growing up, you had a lot. Yeah, just get into it. Go for it.
I did. No. My dad was the closest. My dad was great about never answering your questions. He let you answer them yourself. He was master at that. But no, I didn't, because I was always the big, strong guy, the athlete. I mean, I was always been a 300-pound, huge guy. People looked to me. So I didn't, even with my girl now, one day I told her nobody, I feel like sometimes I can't talk to anybody. And she said, well, you're the man. And I was like, that's the problem. You expect me to follow my sword before you dare see me fall to my knees and cry. And I cry a lot. I miss my dad. That brings me to, and I'm okay with that. There's nothing. When you brought up vulnerable, come back to that at a certain point, because I want to talk to you about something on vulnerability. I never had anybody. And I think that's why some people come to me. And, sometimes I still don't have anybody to talk to. What I'm doing now is an immense amount of pressure, and I don't really have people to reach out to. So I feel like I'm stuck figuring it out myself, but maybe that's why, so I can talk to other men about it.
It's kind of the curse of being a man. It's there's this expectation. And then the fact, one, you're a man, so we're expected to do certain things. Then your physique, everything about you is big. You exude masculinity. The idea of you crying or feeling any kind of emotion aside from anger or anything else would seem foreign to people, when in actuality, you're a human no matter how you're built. So being able, how do you think it would have been if you would have had somebody to talk to growing up, somebody you could have been vulnerable with, somebody who you could have talked to about issues? How would that have changed your trajectory of your life?
I think it would have been a luxury, looking back, but we talk about paths, and the path I'm on, I think that let's make sure my ringer's off. With the path I'm on, I think the fact I didn't have, and I had to figure things out for myself the hard way and go through some really terrible experiences. I think in a way it gives me a gift to speak to people in a way they understand, because I've been through it, and maybe they don't have to go through it because I've been through it, and I can hold their hand and walk them through it. So that's a luxury I'll never have. I don't know how to answer that. I don't know any different.
I hear you. And it's an important space to be in as a man. And hopefully you get to really fully immerse yourself in it, to be completely vulnerable about everything, because I think it'll be a moment. It may just flow out of you. And hopefully it's something that happens. The next letter is I, but I'm going to skip it because we're going to come back to it. The next letter is Z. The word is zeal, enthusiastic devotion. I ask this of men because we as men are here to provide, to take care of everybody else, our spouse, our significant other, family, stuff like that. But in the process of doing all that, we tend to forget about ourselves. So when I talk to men, I ask them this: what do you do for you? Not your partner, not your friend, not your business, not anybody else. When life is rough, when you're thinking about your dad and you're just kind of caught up in emotion, what do you do for you to feel better?
I know you'll know this feeling. At first, I have to deal with the guilt of putting myself first. That is still challenging for me. I tend to do things for strangers, kindness things that makes me feel whole. I don't publicize. It's just, I think kindness is gangster. And when I serve others, that makes me feel okay about, you know what I mean? Like, it's hard to explain. People can twist that any way they want, but I just feel like I'm doing good. And if I'm doing good, then I am good. And it's just, outside of that, I bought a puppy, or my girl got me a puppy. And that is the best thing I've ever done for my mental health, is that dog. That dog loves me, is loyal to me, and I can talk to my dog, and I know people laugh, but yeah, that's probably one of the most significant things I've done. I read my Bible a lot. That's one of the things. I don't call it a guilty pleasure, but maybe, it's hard. I'm fascinated with camping, like cold weather camping in the snow. I've been thinking about it since prison. So that is something I tend to try to do. That's just my time and space. It's challenging. It's uncomfortable. And when I'm alone like that, I can sort through my thoughts better under extreme circumstances.
Makes sense. I'm not a religious person at all, but something that you said, I figured I wanted to see if they kind of connect. So you got a puppy. Everybody loves a good pet. and you read your Bible. When I hear these two things, it feels like two situations where you're feeling like you're being loved. You're reading of the Bible is all about God and loving you and all that He's done and all the stories, and then you've got an animal, a puppy, who loves you unconditionally for whatever reason. Have you ever kind of sat and thought about what it feels like to be loved, just for who you are, as opposed to what you do?
I think about it, but I don't know if I've ever really felt it in the way that I understand love to be. That's something I struggle with. People love you how they love you, but and I know people love me, but I don't know. When I say I had a rough childhood, and now I have no family. I have none. I'm alone. I have no kids. Um, and I think that gives me strength and it kind of insulates me, but I don't often know if I know what it feels like or if I know how to receive love correctly. That might be a better way to put it.
Right.
That I'm loved, but I don't know how to receive it and understand it for what it is because I was abused, mostly physically. So it's confusing for me. Maybe that's why I try to love on people so much because I'm trying to fill the void of what I feel.
Understood. Understandable. um Love is a beautiful thing, and I think you felt good things, you've had good feelings from people, the appreciation for what you do, just people excited to see you walking around and run up and meet you and take a selfie and whatever. And when people love what you do, it's one thing and it feels a little superficial. There's nothing wrong with it because these people don't know you, they know of you. But you have a partner who I'm sure loves you.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a significant difference between loving, oh wow, I love what you did, versus wow, you're a really nice person and I love you. I feel like, to me, it feels like somebody who loves you loves George. The people who see you love White George. And there's this difference. And we men, we don't get the chance to appreciate that. We are so loved for what we provide, what we can give. So I'm sure it's there. And I hope all this love, all this appreciation, all this attention that you get for the wonderful things that you do, and especially from the people you don't even publicize about. That's probably the best stuff. These people, whatever you do for them, they know there's no cameras there. That's love, because you did this and you get nothing from it other than that selfish feeling of like, I helped somebody. How does that feel?
I don't make videos of this. I know people do, but my girl and I prepared bags for displaced people who don't have homes right now. It's freezing cold. And I went through a lot of my clothes. I've lost like 70 pounds this year. So I washed everything and I started bagging them up, new socks, hand warmers, because it's brutally cold. And I reached out to some people to ask where can I go find people on the street because the city wasn't opening shelters here in Fort Wayne. Like it's nuts. I already have calls into the mayor's office because my reach is far bigger than the news and the papers here.
Right.
And I started driving around in the cold and snow and found 4 different individuals to give them bags and some money. It's, I don't care if they go drink on it because I understand someone, an alcoholic like that, who doesn't get a drink in the cold can be more susceptible to death. So I don't care what you need to do, bro. I'm not judging you. Do whatever you got to do to stay alive, but stay warm. And I don't know. It's something that means a lot to me that I didn't feel like I saved a life. I just felt like I connected with another human being who feels like nobody cares. And I just want to know I care and I love them. And I want to see them tomorrow asking me for money at the stoplight. I want to see them there. I want to know they made it through the night.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And we need more people like that. We need to recognize that we're lucky. Having just a house with some heat, with the utilities, being able to go and grab something to eat a snack or drink something, that's a luxury that so many people don't have.
And we take it for granted. We
We
all take it for granted.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I've been homeless and I've stolen to eat before. I know what it feels like. And yeah, I don't know. I have a servant's heart. And once I accepted that, my life changed. That's probably one of the most dramatic things ever is when I just said, I'm done with me. I have a servant's heart. How can I say? And that's life took off for me.
That's amazing. That is amazing. The last letter in the word prize is E. The word is expectation. Big question here. If you could let's not talk about the world. Let's just keep it simple. If you could pick, put together the best characteristics of what this country would be, what would they be? What would you expect of this country to treat everyone better? Not even just Black people, but everyone, the homeless, veterans, addicts, everyone. What expectations would you have of this country if you had the power to kind of fix it?
I think it starts with respect first. You have to respect everyone around you. And people throw the word equal around, but I'm going to say respect each other equally as human beings, right? Skin color is a representation of heritage, not as a measurement of character. And that's so ingrained in so many of our heads that if we could get rid of that, it just becomes respect first. Be kind to everybody. If I had a rule, actually, I've said this forever. Now you made me think of it. If people would do just one thing, well, four things in life: be kind to the person in front of you, be kind to the person beside you, and be kind to the person to the left and to the right. Just be kind to four people in your life. But if everybody was just kind to four people in our life, we'd circle the globe. That's all you need to do, is be nice to four people. If you can give me that, I think we could change everything.
I love that idea. I love that idea. And I think I'm an optimistic person. I've dealt with a lot, some bad things in life, but I always like to think that we could succeed. We could do great things. Thanks for answering the questions in the P.R.I.Z.E mantra. I want to ask one more thing. The letter in the middle is I. When you take away the titles that we men carry around, partner, husband, employee, best friend, activist, speaker, all this stuff, when it's just you, George, who are you?
I'm still just a little boy. I look at the world through the eyes of a 6-year-old boy with amazement. You said zeal. That's how I look at the world. Every day I wake up and it's beautiful to me. I love rain because rain makes you appreciate sun. If you had sun all the time, you get sick of it. When I lived in Seattle where it rained a lot, and I loved it because sunny days were so amazing to me. And the rain cleans everything. I have like a childlike, when you take all the pressures away and all the expectations and it's just me, I tend to look around in amazement. I tend to walk around just because I can see things more clearly when I don't have all that noise. So it's like I'm just rediscovering life at 52. All the beautiful things I take for granted, I notice now. I'm a damn good cook. I had to earn, so I love the art of cooking a meal. It's how I decompress. I'm feeding others. I'll eat just a little of it, but if other people love it, it makes me happy because food is a way to connect. And it's just the little things. It drives my girl nuts. She doesn't like to cook, but I'll take time to prepare because in prison, meals were a big deal. And we would break bread together and we'd cut and make spreads, and that's fellowship. And you learn to be patient because you had time. And I just carried that over into my life now. I just slow down.
I hear you talk about yourself and that you think you're a child. There's a level of innocence that we lose as we get older. I feel like you found it again. The fact that you're a child, but you have you have discovered life. You have discovered history that is our own. You've discovered that people who don't look exactly like you have created beautiful things that you can appreciate. I think your innocence is what makes you amazing.
But I was kind of evil. I have, victims of my crimes. I have that yin and yang. And normally you're innocent and then you become bad. Right. I think I was bad and I just regressed back to, maybe I missed that part of my life. I didn't get to explore it. And now I want that. And I want to spend the rest of my life being that way because I wasn't before. I was an asshole.
Mm-hmm. We've all had our times. I'm sure, I've been an asshole. I'm sure plenty of times, but acknowledging it and getting past it and working to be better is the true level of a man, I think. So I applaud you for that.
But what is, I'm open about, like I said, growing up racist. I'm very transparent. I hate the word honesty because people abuse the word of being honest. Well, right. I'm honest to a fault. If you've got to tell me you're honest to a fault, you've been accused of being dishonest at some point. You need to project that. I read right through it. I prefer transparent. Okay. And I brought up vulnerability. This is the thing. Like my girl and I, sometimes we talk about, she has trouble being vulnerable to me. Mm-hmm. But I try to be vulnerable to show her, show how I want it in return. But I've had probably 40 or 45 white men reach out to me wanting to discuss their own struggle with racism. Now, how often do you see two white guys being vulnerable to each other about their own racism? I'd never in my life had that happen until recently. Like, I'm going to go to Indianapolis and have lunch with a guy who asked me to come down there because he'd like to talk about it. He's struggling because one of his sons, white sons, dating a Black American girl. He goes, I love the girl, but I still deal with that bias. So I was like, yeah, I'll come down and have lunch with you. We'll try to talk it out, see what's up. How often are men? So I'm starting to see some men quietly be more vulnerable. But you brought up a point, and I was thinking about this before I came on today. A friend of mine's in construction, and he tells me I've done it. We have to be big, hard, and tough all day long, right? The jokes, the macho. But he goes, I come home and I just want to take all that off and just be myself. And his wife won't let him. She expects him to still be that hard man. He goes, I never get a break, and I hate it. It just wears him down. I just decided to be vulnerable, and I don't care what people think.
Being able to do that is an amazing thing. And like you said, it's right. Being a man is all encompassing. It's everything. It's how we speak, it's how we're perceived, it's how we eat, it's everything about us. And we spend so much time living trying to be that image of a man that we have no time to be ourselves. And I understand exactly what you're saying about that. I don't know. I Masculinity covers a lot of things, and I'll just tell you a little bit about me. I am a stay-at-home dad of four.
Well, good
My
for you.
wife, yeah, my wife works. She goes out there, she makes money. I am the atypical man because I'm not supposed to be the one at home.
Mr. Mom.
Exactly,
Mr. Mom.
Mr. Mom, but I am. I have a son and three daughters. I am here with them. And it took me a while to just be comfortable enough. I mean, these are my kids, and nobody else should be raising them but me. But there's still this little bit like I should be the one out there. My wife should be here. Like this is woman's work type of thing. And that's bull. It is crap. But we spend so much time trying to get past these mores, these things we're supposed to be. And in the end, and I don't know if you agree, to me, I think masculinity is different for every man walking on this earth.
Mhm.
Being a man is different for everyone. I am as much as a man as anybody else. I cook for my kids, I clean, do whatever. But if you get in my face and mess with my kids, I will beat that ass. I have no problem with being that kind of a man too. But at the same time, I've got a 19-year-old son who's bigger than me, who loves a hug, and he will stay in that hug. And that's weird. When you masculinity is all this, my daughters, I can hug them all day. My son, it feels just a little bit different.
You're
Because
conditioned.
right, because he's a boy, and I'm not supposed to have that kind of. But that's we got to get past these things. There's all these little things that are kind of thrown at us. We're socialized to do these things, but being a man means being whoever you need to be. For anybody else, we can provide, we can help, but I do it as me. And when I feel good about me, I'm better for you.
You know, it's funny you say that because I've often been called the girl in the relationship with my partner, girl, because I do have, I mean, we all have a masculine and a feminine side. I mean, we all do. And I have distinct feminine, and I don't say that as a negative.
Right.
I cook well, I'm kind, I'm gentle. I'm open emotionally where other people are reserved. So yeah, I see where the stereotype applies, but I'm okay with that.
Right.
But like I told my girl, if somebody hurt you or their kids, I would literally rip their head from their shoulders. I would hurt them. I said, but are you prepared to hold me afterward when I break down and cry?
There you go.
Because I caused so much destruction and violence protecting you. I said, but if you're not willing to do that for me, how can I protect you if I know I don't have a safe haven to come heal from?
Mhm.
And there's the juxtaposition.
Yeah, that's bold, and that's it. We men go out into the world, and I can say as a black man, when I step out into the world, I carry a bit more. I go out into the world. My struggle is, am I going to make it back? And I have to explain that to my son and explain that to my daughters. But being able to go out into the world, knowing what I'm going to face, but be able to come home and just drop it. That's a level of safety, but not all men appreciate. Being able to let that go when I walk through my door. I don't want to have to be that guy all the time. It's hard.
Mhm.
It's emotionally draining.
You're
And
always on guard.
people don't get that. I think, and I think some women too do not get. I recognize how incredibly difficult it is to be a woman in this world, but to be a man, it is also difficult. And when you recognize that and can be that shoulder for me to cry on, or that lap for me to lay in, I never feel like more of a man than when I'm just kind of letting go with my wife.
that because I trust her. You know what I mean? That is the person, and I can be man enough to let go, like you said. And my dad taught me this. And we're here to provide and protect and support. He goes, we don't have life or legacy without a woman. We build that home, or we build a house that she makes a home. We provide because of what she gives and gives us in life. We cannot do it without him. I was raised that my dad 100% believed in that, but there's no vulnerability there.
Right.
Like my girl, single mom with 3 kids, that's the hardest job in the world. You understand it. You're doing it. And that gives you perspective to share with other men. Like the color of your skin, mine has never been held against me. Being white means nothing to me. Like I have no affiliation with my white skin because it's never been held against me. Right. So it's hard for me. And I'm trying to understand, like what you just said, that's not the first time I've heard that. It breaks my heart, but I'm trying to gain better context because I've never once walked out like that, except in prison. I will say that I was a minority in prison, but that little tiny taste I got helped open my eyes to people that look different than me and the struggle they go through, because that tiny little experience was enough to get my attention.
Mm-hmm. So you've spoken to a lot of people. What have you gained? What little bit of knowledge have you picked up from Black men, I'm sure, talking to you about their experience of just living and walking around? What have you picked up personally? Anything that you've
I think they're more hurt that they're just not accepted. Probably the most common thing is why am I not good enough? Why does so many in society, what do they have against me? What did I do? Why am I not? That's probably one of those biggest things I hear when they actually kind of become vulnerable and they get to the bravado, and that's what it breaks down to. And I can't answer it for them except to say that I'm somebody who sees you every bit as a human and brother and sister. To me, that's what I can offer you. But that's one of the most common things I get asked is, why don't people see me for me?
That's it. That's it. I don't need you to understand. And I think it's a lot of times when you're in a relationship with a woman, married or she's a significant other, there's a lot of times as men, because we're problem solvers, it's in our nature. I'm trying to fix whatever happened. Something went wrong. What can I do about it?
Mm-hmm.
And I think with the men who come and talk to you, I know you're not going to be able to understand my experience. I appreciate somebody who looks like you is listening to my experience. So you're like, it's not the race card. I'm not just throwing it out there to make it as an excuse that this is real. And you can say, you know what? I'll never experience that, but I understand what you're saying. And I'm proud that you're able to deal with it day after day and keep going. Listening. And that's in general for men too. We have so many issues. Depression. We attempt to kill ourselves so much more than women do. And there's simple things like listening. Sometimes all a man needs is to get it out. Sometimes I just need to tell you what's going on with me. You can't solve it. You can't.
But we try.
And we will try. You're right. And we will always try. Oh, and so am I. So am I. And we can't fix it, but I can get it out and then I can move on. Then I can go on with the day. And not only do I gain my sanity back, but I gain, wow, that guy listened to me. He understood what I was talking about. He didn't make fun of me. I was able to say it and I felt safe saying it. I always ask men this: do you have a friend? Do you have a man who, and you mentioned you don't have, I guess, a lot of blood family left. Do you have a male friend who you could call right now and talk to about whatever and let it all go out and feel safe about saying something to him?
I have 5.
That is awesome.
I've had my same best friend for 47 years, since kindergarten. We still talk. I'm going to see him again soon. We've been roommates, college. He's still my best friend, but I have most of my friends I've grown up with, my closest. I know which one who I can call for what. And I have that one guy who is, if I could be half the man he is, that is a goal. You know, he is just such a man I respect that I can call him and he'll listen. But I've learned this. My friend will unload something on me and I'll be like, dude, it sucks to be you right now. But you'll laugh, right? And
that's it. That's men. That's how we talk to each other.
It's cathartic, you know? And
yes.
I find that men hug me harder now in life. Like I'll go out and meet, Black American men who come up and hug me and they'll hug me. Like I feel that embrace and I feel that connection in that moment. I'm like, I love you. I just got you. That is, and that's one of the things that invigorates me, that connection. Try going without a hug for 3 years, without the touch of a woman for 3 years. I lost my dad 2 months Speaking of mental health, my dad, I lost him to brain cancer 2 months before I got locked up. You don't grieve in prison. You don't show emotion. And to this day, I still don't know how to let that grief out. It's bottled up and it's literally a choke point. And it's something I got to figure out because it eats at me.
I think we all have something. A lot of us men, because we haven't really been taught how to express any real emotion aside from anger and not even grief. And I can imagine, like, you lost maybe the most important person in your life, and then you didn't have the opportunity to let it go. It's just sitting there, and then something else is going to happen, and it's sitting on top of it, and then something else, and that's what the toxic masculinity thing is. I'm not entirely in agreement of that term. To me, it feels like a man who's gone through some shit and hasn't been able to talk to anybody about it. So that happened and it's there. Something else happened and it's there. Something else happened and it's there. And then at the end, because we're human, it comes out. And we don't know how, we just know it does.
But you brought up expectations, and I think you would agree with this. I have my strengths, right? And I've tried to be transparent about what they are so people can understand. But you can have expectations for my strengths, but don't have expectations on things I do not have or possess. I can be truly great in these areas. And if you'll embrace that, it will benefit you. But if you minimize that and expect me to be something I'm not, we're just never going to get anywhere. We're never going to connect or understand each other. I always say I'm capable of extreme violence, but I don't ever want to be violent. That beast that keeps in the corner of my mind, I think drives me to be good. I've used my brain and my intellect for bad before, so I see what it does. Now using it for good's a whole new world. So don't expect me to do bad. Don't expect me to be something I'm not, and embrace what I am that's good. That's one of the things I hate is when I'm not heard. I hate when I'm not heard.
I hear that.
That brings me to anger.
I hear that. I understand that completely. For me, I think I want people to just expect me to be human. And when you expect me to be human, that means you expect the good, the bad. I'm infallible. I'm not infallible. I'm going to make mistakes. Expect mistakes. Expect me to come out from them. Expect me to acknowledge them, to admit them, to love you, to hate you sometimes. Expect everything, but respond to the good, right? And it's hard because we men don't always get that. We're expected to do, provide, protect, all these same things. Meanwhile, we're doing that all for you, but not for ourselves.
I've learned this. People project their own insecurity, misery, and anger and self-loathing onto other people. So when I know somebody attacks me for a mistake I did and it's disproportional to the level of mistake, I realize it has nothing to do with me. They are projecting some insecurity or something they have onto me that they see they don't like about themselves. When I became aware of that, it changed how I deal with people. When people come at me in comments who don't know me, I don't take it personal. I don't get offended. I know they're projecting onto me. I'm a representation of something, a face of something bigger they don't like, right? So even in our personal interactions, I see it all the time. People want to project onto me. And sometimes I'll just tell them back off. I'll check them. It's like, I know what you're doing. Stop. And then they kind of humble. They understand like, okay, now we can talk.
Okay.
But until you call people out on that, what they're doing, they don't realize they're doing it. But as soon as you help them become aware that I am not your target, trust me, I'm not going to be your target today. There's 8 billion people in the world, and I'm not that guy. But when you do that, people kind of take a step back and go, okay. And then we talk. Right. It's the funniest thing. Yeah. But when I learned to do it, conversations got a lot better.
The fact that you can separate people from their actions is quite a skill. Not everybody can do that. It's difficult. And I can readily admit, as a Black person, that I understand whether some kid will make some ridiculous comment or some adult, and recognize that that comment, that word, that phrase doesn't come, you don't actually feel that way about me. It's just what you've been socialized to say. But it's hard because it's racism is everywhere. And if somebody says something stupid, that's just part of it. That's America. That's what it is. But that's not always the case. It's not that simple. Sometimes if you're able to look at somebody and understand that there's a background, that there is a lot that's happened that I don't know about, and I don't want to pity you, but I can empathize that this isn't really you. This is just who you're projecting to me right now. If I can get past that dumbass comment and I'm like, listen, you may see this black or whatever, but hey, I hate the Cowboys just like everybody else. Dude, we're cool. We're, get past some stuff.
What'd you say? You hate the Cowboys? Like,
I
hell
hate the
yeah.
Dallas
Pittsburgh
Cowboys.
Steelers.
See, exactly.
I'm a Steeler fan.
I see you, bro. See, and that's it. It takes something small and we get past the junk and we can get into the stuff. And I'm like, I'm a sports fan just like you. I love football, love baseball. I love Muhammad Ali. I love Babe Ruth. We have so many similarities. There's so many things that we agree on that if we can get there, all the rest of the stuff we can throw to the side. And I think that's why you're so loved.
Well,
Because
no, I say you brought up this. This is just my opinion. My actions are being held against me. I mean, deservedly so, but it's not always a reflection of who I am or what I become, right? But I understand because of the color of your skin, people in my community hold actions against you you may not ever even do. Right. They just make the assumption you're going to, and then they judge you based on this absolutely ridiculous notion. I see it all the time. I hear it in conversation. I will tell you this, though. People I worked in construction with and others, before they dropped the N-word, they would look right over at me before it came out of their mouth because I'm like, I mean, I'll go to hands. I'm not just the way I'm wired. And they stop now. They're like, sorry, man. Sorry. I'm like, okay. But they're aware of it.
Yeah. And that means something. That absolutely means something. 2 more of these random podcast questions because I think they're fun. What are you afraid of that you can not control?
Being tortured to death.
Wow. Okay. I hear you. That straight to the point. Let's flip the coin. What are you afraid of that you can control?
I've convinced myself that I'm fearless for so long that I sometimes don't know if I can recognize what I'm really afraid of.
Okay.
That fearlessness gives me a protective shield that I think that's a detriment because I need to be able to identify what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid of dying alone. I'm afraid of not having a legacy. I ruined my name being a criminal, and I worry that I want my dad's good name to be restored. That terrifies me, dying alone. I can control it by, there's a way to, but you still can't predict. But yeah, those are things that weigh on me, especially the tortured death. I don't know why that's new and recent, but it feels like a premonition in some way, and it scares me to death.
Oh, no, I don't like that either. No, let's get that out of your mind. Let's find a way to get rid of that. Last question. One thing I find about you, and I've watched your content, and a lot of what you do is your teaching to anybody who would listen. I gain so much from your videos, from hearing you talk, and not just what you say, but how you say it. Somebody can talk about history, but you talk about it with such reverence. It's obvious that you love it. Do you prefer teaching or learning?
Learning has been my passion. I have a near eidetic memory. That's one of the, all my videos are done from memory. There's never a script. I do the whole thing straight from the rip. Rarely do I do a second take. I've always learned I love to absorb information, but in the last few years since prison, my love of teaching has just exploded. I can only do so much with the knowledge, right? And I can only put so much in here, but what good does it do if I have it, if I can't share it in a relatable way? So it switched from learning to teaching.
Okay. That's good.
I never want to stop learning, but I don't want to stop teaching either.
Agreed. They're one and the same to me, in all honesty. The more I think, and I'm sure this is the same for you, the more you learn, the more you want to put out to the world. I find this new fact out. I want to tell somebody about it.
That's exactly what, since I was a kid, I've been that way.
That's good. And again, the kind of people we need in this world. I loved having this conversation. I wasn't sure I would ever get to talk to you, so it has been an absolute pleasure. Talk to everybody. Where can they find you? Social media, what are your handles? What do you have going on that you're willing to talk about?
Absolutely. My TikTok is White George. Instagram is The Wit George. It's like white without the E, The Wit George. It's only 2 platforms I'm on. So if you see me all on Facebook and Twitter, Other people are posting it. We're going, in a quick synopsis, we're going to Jackson State and Tougaloo College in Mississippi this next week. Coming home, I think we may go back to Detroit. I'm going to go to Chicago to meet another big creator. And the daughter of one of the subjects of my videos reached out to me and would like to tell me stories about her father, Dr. Percy Julian.
Wow.
And then, so I've got that. And then February 10th, we're going to Tennessee State for a big HBCU regional trivia tournament put on by Honda. Then I'm going to Morehouse's Candle in the Dark. I'm going to be about Atlanta for a week. Then I may be going down to Florida, to Jacksonville, like Edward Waters, meet with a company there, and coming back to Battle Creek, Michigan, because I'm bringing in a couple of old ex-NFL players and a world champion track athlete to a PWI high school, a very wealthy white high school, where I have a friend named Dana who runs an HBCU hub. She institutes in high schools to help kids become aware of HBCUs, how to get into them, how to choose one, and scholarships. And I love what she does. So we're bringing these guys in so the kids can talk to and speak to. Like, these are legends, athletic legends, that these kids would have an opportunity, and they're coaches at HBCUs now. So I got them to agree to come in so we could do that. And then, are you ready for this? In April, I'm walking across America. From New York I'm touching the ocean, New York, and I'm walking my fat ass 3,000 miles to LA, touching the ocean. And I'm going to wear HBCU shirts all the way across America to draw attention and make content. And I want to promote financial and reading literacy. Because even if you don't get a college degree, if you have financial literacy, you can build wealth. But in prison, I saw that how many illiterate men who were never taught to read or didn't want to learn. If you can learn to read, reading will take you everywhere. Imagination is fed by reading, and it will take you. So if we can make reading cool again. So I have a thing where we do like reading rock stars, where I want to try to get some friends of mine who are well known to come in, and kids see like they love to read. Then I want to be like them. That's kind of the way we're. And I've got a friend in Cincinnati who's written a children's book. I've got a few of them that have, and we want to use these books to start early. And then ultimately want to create scholarships for HBCU students. And I dare some white attorney to try to sue me because I want to raise money for historically black colleges. I dare them to do that. Like I see going on right now with the Freedom Fund. Mm-hmm. I know one of the women who's an investor in that. So I have a whole inside scoop on how that's going on. Pisses me off. So that's what my plan is. I'll walk. I'll be done in probably September, October, have the HBC New York Classic between Morehouse and Howard at MetLife. I'll be going to that game, finish my walk, come back through homecoming season, rest the first couple of months of next year, write my book, and start a podcast. That's my goals.
Right. Fantastic. You're talking about reading, and obviously you're huge on TikTok. I'm sure you've seen Oliver James's content.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure if you guys can connect, he would be a wonderful person because he's working on reading. I feel like that might be something to do if you can.
That'd be. Let me write. Hold on. Make sure I note so I don't forget it.
Yes. Oh, so this is amazing. So finally, thank you. Everything that you mentioned, all the places you can find White George will be in the episode notes. Thank you so much.
Harvey, I sincerely appreciate it. I couldn't think of a better way to spend a Friday night with somebody, with a friend.
Me too. This was excellent. I'm going to put you back in the room for a second and end. But again, thank you so very much.
I appreciate it, Harvey.
Thank you. I've been so lucky this season. I've had wonderful guests, such great people to talk to. And of course, White George was another great person to talk to. If we gain nothing else from this conversation, we're really all human. We're all the same. And we all bring something different to the table. Our history, the way we speak, the way we eat, our experiences, everything. We're all the same. We spend less time focusing on the superficial and focus more on the person. We'll be so much better off. And it's not as important as how you start, but it's how you finish. We have an amazing man in George, and he had life hit him. He made his mistakes, but he came out as a better man. And to all you men out there, we struggle, we fight, we fall, we get up, but we stay and we stick around through whatever, not only for ourselves, but for our family, our people around us, our neighborhood, our city, our state, our world. We are all needed. We are all valued. Thank you very much for watching this episode and every one of them. And I will see you next week because you are a man. You're an amazing one. And you're the prize. See you next week.